Hello and welcome back to Just for Fun. This is Matt. Thank you for watching. Thank you for liking. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for subscribing. This is another Legacy deck. We're back for more Legacy action. This is called All Spells, or affectionately, Oops, All Spells. A very interesting deck. You'll notice the land count up here is 0. So how do you play a deck with 0 lands? I know many of you might have seen this deck before. But if you haven't, it's pretty complicated until you see it. And then once you've done it once or twice, it's very, very simple. Basically, the whole point of the deck is to get to 4 mana, preferably on turn 1, without using lands. So how can we do that, right? So we have 21 1-mana sources starting from 0. Right, these are 0 mana sources. These are all +1 from your hand. So, Chancellor of the Tangle, if you reveal it in your opening hand, you get a green. Spirit Guides, you can exile for mana. Lotus Petal, obviously 0 mana +1. Chrome Mox, something that's duplicative in your hand that you don't need to go off. Or you can Summoner's Pact for Elvish Spirit Guide. So there's basically 10 Spirit Guides. These will get you to these rituals, right? So you can cast your Dark Rituals off of, or your Cabal Ritual off of Lotus Petal, maybe Chrome Mox, probably not, or off of Manamorphose, right? We've got Tinderwall, Rite of Flame, all the big hitters here. Wild Cantor is kind of special, so let me move her over here. And basically the point of so you're using all these just to get to 4 mana. Once you get 4 mana, one of them being black, you can cast Undercity Informer and sack it, or cast Balustrade Spy. And these 2 odd cards were these from Return to Ravnica, I guess? Or Gatecrash, I can never remember the symbols, but they were from Return to Ravnica block for sure. These 2 odd cards have a very strange ability that was meant to be a mill ability for Dimir, right? So when they enter the battlefield, target player reveals cards from the top of his or her library until he or she reveals a land card, then puts all of those cards into his or her library. So instead of targeting our opponent with this ability, and this one has the same ability, we target ourselves. Because we don't have any lands, this will automatically mill our whole deck. So from an opening hand, I kind of like to call it 52 card pickup. I don't know if you guys ever remember that from grade school, smack the playing cards out of somebody's hands. But this will mill your whole deck reliably. And what do you do with that? Well, how do you turn this into winning, right? And whoever came up with this is just a brilliant maniac of a person. So they use Narcomoeba, a very unique card. When this is milled, it goes onto the battlefield for free. And it's kind of like, okay, you get a little value. It's a 1/1 flyer, no big deal, right? Well, you get 4 of these automatically from your spy or informer going off. That allows you to cast this Broken Busted card, Dread Return, for free, right? Sack 3 creatures, so you sack 3 of these dorks, Dread Return. Now, if you have Taxian Probe or Street Wraiths in your hand, you will Dread Return for Lab Maniac, and then cast Probe or Cycle Street Wraith to trigger the win on Lab Maniac. If you don't have Street Wraith or get Probe in your hand, it gets a little bit, there's one more additional step. You Dread Return Underworld Cerberus. What this does is, when it dies, you return all creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. So when it dies, okay, so when it comes into play from Dread Return, you can kill it with the Cabal Therapy that'll be in your graveyard. You have 2, so basically not impossible, but it's going to be in your graveyard. You sack this, you use this to sacrifice Cerberus, and you do have the added utility of getting rid of any card that could threaten to disrupt your win. And this will trigger the die ability on the Cerberus. This will get all the cards, all the creatures from the graveyard back to your hand, allowing you to do something like exile some spirit guides, and use Wild Cantor to get a blue mana to cast Lab Maniac from your hand, and then you will definitely have a Street Wraith in your hand to cycle for the win. So a little tricky with words, but when you see it in action, might make more sense. Now, another fun thing with this deck is obviously people are going to board in graveyard hit against you. So what can you do is you can remove basically a whole bunch of your combo pieces, right, and board into Charbelcher. So because a lot of the cards are the same, right? Like all of these cards and all of these cards are basically fine in Charbelcher, right? So we take out a lot of this other stuff, throw in all the red rituals and the Charbelchers, and try to go for a kill with that. So really, really fun way to kind of like duke your opponent in the sideboarding, and I enjoy it. I think it's a very fun, very silly deck. It's kind of all in. It's very bad against Force of Will decks. It's very similar to how Charbelcher works, like, except it's also bad against Graveyard Hate. But so if you're in a metagame where there's a lot of dredge and people are prepared for that, then this deck is going to be bad. If you're playing against a metagame where people are not playing decks like that and people are not playing a lot of Graveyard Hate in their sideboard, you're going to take a lot of people by surprise, especially because it's really easy to turn one in this deck. You can turn one a lot of the time. So it's fast enough to get through the disruption in that sense. So let's go play some games and show you how it works, hopefully.